गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री Gurave Namaha. We are in Ishavasya Upanishad and we are towards the end, and that is, where are we? Where is that gone? Granthartha Vivechan. So certain doubts. So we are in Ishavasya Upanishad, the Granthartha Vivechan, where the text is being explained, especially certain point which was made about Vidya and Avidya, and having heard the whole Upanishad, the student, the seeker, is still confused about certain things, especially one thing. And therefore, he says, अविद्यया मृत्युम तीर्त्वा विद्या अमृतम अश्नुते विनाशेन मृत्युम तीर्त्वा संभूत्या मृतम अश्नुते. This was told in the 14th verse. इति श्रुत्वा केचित् संशयं कुर्वन्ति. So we have seen avidya was talked of as karma, and vidya was talked about as the knowledge of the gods or upasana, and through that one can attain immortality. And then it was said, vinashena mrityum tirtva sambhutya mridam ashnute. And in this way, having gone beyond the vinasha, instead of using the word avidya, the word vinash was used in the 14th verse. The previous avidya mrityum tirtva was in the 11th verse, and vinashena mrityum tirtva is used in the 14th verse. And he said that having gone beyond the destruction vinashena, one attains to the asambhuti, or having crossed beyond the avyakta, the unmanifest, the asambhuti, one attains to immortality. This is what we heard. Ataha tan nirakaranaartham sankshepato vicharanam karishyamaha. Therefore, we are going to think, the teacher is saying that we are going to think about it a little bit, about what was told, especially with regards to the avidya and vidya, sambhuti and
Malwarebytes agent version update available.
Asambhuti and sambhuti, and amrutatvam, which is immortality. So these words were creating a bit of confusion. So here it says, tatra tavat kin nimittah sanshaya ityuchyate. What is that point by taking which there is doubt? What is the kind of doubt that can come in the minds of people? The teacher is saying. And see, this is the beauty of our Panchadashi, the beauty of our Upanishads. No stone is left unturned. Prospective questions, prospective doubts, which have not even appeared in your mind yet, they are also addressed. So what is the possible doubt? Then here it says, विद्या शब्देन मुख्या परमात्म विद्या एव कस्मान्न गृह्यते अमृतत्वञ्च. Here, these two words which were used by Vidya, why does it not mean Paramatma Vidya? Why does it mean Upasana Vidya? Meaning, Upasana means sitting near, and something, what you are sitting near, you are sitting near some God. So why Upasana is about some God? So here the doubt is that why can't Upasana or Vidya mean, why can't we be sitting near the infinite reality? Think. Why can't we be sitting near Brahman? Why are you insisting that we are sitting near gods? Why cannot the word Vidya mean sitting near the infinite reality, the Brahman, the Paramatma? And in this way, and the second is Amrutattva. And when the word Amrutattva, immortality, has been used, then why can't we take it to be the infinite immortality? Why are we taking relative immortality? This is what we said before, if you remember. So why can't we take absolute immortality, after which there is no birth and death, there is no rebirth? Why are you insisting that it is relative immortality? In this way, so this is the doubt that has been present, that could be coming in the minds of the student. Then in answer, the teacher, nanuktayaha paramatma vidyayaha कर्मणः च विरोधात् समुच्चयान् उपपत्तिः. So what we have said before in the text is that there is remember the first verse was Ishavasam idagam sarvam, and the second word was Kurvanneveha karmani. And what did we say there? And even in the introduction of the Upanishad, what was told? That there are two paths. One is the path of Brahma Vidya, and the other is the path of karma. And these two are opposing. Through karma, through action, you can never come to gain the infinite reality. I repeat, through action, one can never gain infinite reality. One can never realize, one can never gain absolute immortality. But immortality is one, yes, this is not, then if you can't understand it, go home, go to bed, watch a serial. Otherwise, study the Upanishad again. The whole analysis that was taken. So when we talk of Brahma Vidya, we do not talk of karma, we do not talk of action, as action only happens in ignorance. It is an expression of ignorance. And this has already been said, that by avidya, by avidya we mean karma, and by vidya we mean upasana. And vidya and karma and upasana, vidya and avidya, both are expressions of ignorance. The Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the Absolute, does not fall in the purview of doing. The Absolute knowledge does not fall into the purview of karma, nor into the purview of the mind, nor of the intellect. This we have already said. Apply it to yourself. What are we doing here? Right now, what are we doing? There is an exchange of thoughts going on. Exchange what? One way thought. I am only bombarding you with my thought. What? These thoughts. It's one way track. What is our interaction with these thoughts that are being presented? When I am saying, or the Upanishad is saying, that karma and upasana do not fall, or by following them, by following action, by following single pointed focus, concentration, prayer, you cannot gain absolute immortality. Because the absolute knowledge, the Brahma Vidya, is independent, is transcendental to these two, karma and upasana. Karma and upasana are two tentacles or two expressions of ignorance, avidya. For Brahma Vidya to take place, for absolute knowledge to take place, absolute knowledge equal to self knowledge. For self knowledge to take place, ignorance must be destroyed. Only then knowledge will take place, isn't it? Otherwise, it is not possible. And this ignorance, its two tentacles are karma and upasana, vidya and avidya. So, how can, now see our obsession, then how can our disposition to do, to put efforts, to concentrate, to focus on a flame, to focus on a dot, to focus on the sun, how can all those focuses, concentrations, chanting of the Lord's name and focus on it, only Lord's name is going on in your head or Om is going on? How can this type of concentration, which is happening within, which is an expression of ignorance, how can it lead us to Brahma Vidya? Brahma Vidya means Atma Vidya, self knowledge. Self knowledge and absolute knowledge are one and the same in nature. The nature of the space in this room and the nature of space in the infinite universe is exactly the same. Or the infinite space is exactly the same. Quality is not different of the space. So same way, the self knowledge and the Brahma Vidya, it's one and the Atma Vidya and Brahma Vidya. Self knowledge and infinite knowledge is one and the same. And to perform karma, action, doership is required. To perform upasana, doership is required. Someone is thinking about God. Someone is putting efforts to do the right, to remember he has to speak the truth, to remember not to tell lies, to remember that he should not live a desire oriented life. There is a person, and that person is an expression of ignorance, who is covering the absolute knowledge. If we have understood this, uh, then here he says, satyam, the satyam virodhastu nav गम्यते विरोधा विरोधयोः शास्त्र प्रमाणकत्वात्. Okay, the student says, or the doubt, he is himself putting the doubt, he is himself answering also. So whether these are the whether they are opposing each other or they are supporting each other, or they are they are not opposing to each other, or they are opposing each other. This, how do we come to know this? This can be only come to know through the Shastras, through the scriptures. And therefore he says, yatha vidya anushtanam vidya upasanancha shastra pramanakam tatha tad virodha virodhavapi. And therefore he says, they seem to be not opposing each other, and because they are not opposing each other, we feel that they are supporting each other. See the usage of words that are being is there. Because they are not opposing each other, a seeker, a student imagines they are supporting each other. But that is not so. And therefore, here is just the way the what do you call, the establishment of karma and upasana is based on the scriptures. Scriptures are telling you this is karma. Scriptures are telling you this is upasana. Scriptures are telling you the results of karma and upasana are separate. Scriptures are telling you that they must be practiced together. Who told you? Scriptures only. Who told you that karma and upasana are steps of a ladder rather than two separate goals to be pursued? Scriptures only told you. You never thought about it. Because scriptures have the ability to analyze everything. They are our praman. They are our what do you call, praman को क्या बोलते हैं?
Benchmark.
They are our benchmark. They are our authority, based on which we determine our experience of life. If our experience of life, if our conclusions of life, if our notions of life are mirroring the conclusions given in the scriptures, then there is growth possible. Then there is possibility of unfoldment and eventual establishment. And if you are established or not, who tells you? Does space tell you? Does wall tell you? Does a picture tell you? The scriptures tell you. These are the signs. And what are the signs? If you know you are realized, know that you are not realized. And if you think you are not realized, yes, you are not realized. This comes in Kena Upanishad. The next Upanishad we take, this is the topic there. It will come, one of the topics. See? So our source of authority is the scriptures. And scriptures are saying that these paths must not be, they give different results. Both of them, karma and upasana, give different results. Both of them are products of ignorance. Both should not be pursued independently. Both should be pursued in such a manner that having done the karma, one automatically qualifies for upasana, or while doing karma, he offers kurvanneveha karmani. Jiji Vishesh Shadagang Samaha. Do not aspire for living long. Instead, perform action as an offering to the divine. This will be karma, which is avidya, and vidya, which is upasana, the God principle, coming together, isn't it? You are performing your actions. We are saying the doership is there. We are performing the actions, but those actions, whatever we are performing, is offered as an offering to the divine without expecting any result. Think. And this path is totally different from Atma Vidya, is totally different from self knowledge. Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya, whichever way you take it. So here the teacher is saying that यथाचन हिंस्यात् सर्वा भूतानीति शास्त्राद् अवगतं पुनः शास्त्रेण एव च बाध्यते अध्वरे पशुं हिंसादिति. Just like scriptures only tell us, do not kill, do not offer animals as prasad to the Lord, as an offering to the divine. Evam, and at the same time, same scriptures also give you, also tell, here it says that during the yajna you can offer animals. So on one hand they are saying don't offer animals, another place they are saying you can, under whatever conditions, that the whole, that is not our point here. What are the parameters when you can offer? All that is given. Somewhere it must be given. So same way, evam vidya avidya vidyaha api syat. And same way, what is vidya and what is avidya, what is upasana and what is karma, scriptures are only telling us. Vidya karmanoho cha samuchchayaha. And when we are following the scriptures, which scriptures are saying that you perform them together, you deal with them together, don't first only think of karma and then think of upasana. No, karma and upasana have to be done together. So he says, if scriptures are only saying it, now what does he say? One moment. Where are we? So this was the doubt, that the scriptures are giving both types of they are giving the permission and at the same time they are not giving the permission. So here the teacher is saying, na duram ete viparite vishuchi avidya yacha vidya kenopanishad iti shrutehe. No, the teacher says, for that doubt which was told before, the teacher says no, because the scriptures say that whatever the journey of karma is and the journey of upasana is, it gives you different results. So they must be opposite to each other. They cannot be the same. Just because scriptures are saying that you can kill animal and you cannot kill animal, so it's the same scripture which gave both of them, both the siddhanta, both the authorities. But scripture is not performing the action, no. You need a doer to perform the action. So here the counter argument is given that Yes, scripture has told you what is karma and what is upasana, and both of them, karma and upasana, have a different result which is opposite to each other. Whatever is the result of karma is not the result which upasana gives, and whatever is the result of upasana, you cannot gain it through karma. And therefore again the doubt is raised, vidyam cha avidyam cha iti vachanad avirodha iti chet. So he says, but vidya and avidya, the, by this sentence, is it not that they are opposite to each other, or that they are anti each other? No, I shouldn't say anti, sorry, avirod. Means, are they not supporting each other? Avirod will not be, see, I'm taking very being, I'm getting carried away. Avirod is not opposing each other. Avirod is not supporting each other. So, not supporting and not opposing, is it the same? Is it the same? It is not same. There, in the second one, the emphasis was on support, and on the first one, the emphasis was on opposition. No opposition, meaning they are not opposing each other. This is the doubt that is being taken again, and the teacher says in response to that possible doubt, na hetu swarupa phala virodhat. Again the teacher says the same thing, no, the result of both is opposite to each other, so they are not supportive of each other. Again a doubt, vidya avidya virodha avirodhayoho विकल्प संभवात समुच्चय विधानाद अविरोध एव इति चेत. He says vidya and avidya, that is upasana and karma, and the other words that are used is opposition and no opposition. These two words, vidya and avidya, are not the meaning the same. Virod, opposition, and non-opposition, these two words are not meaning the same. So why don't we accept that if there is no opposition between both of them, why can't we take them to be one? Why can't we take them to be supportive of each other? This is the doubt that might come in someone's mind. The teacher says, na sahasambhavan upapattehe. No, because these two cannot stay together. Karma and upasana cannot stay together because they are totally different. It is again we will say that if vidya, knowledge, in the Upanishad, what was it taken as? Vidya was taken as upasana. Suppose we take vidya as Brahma Vidya, infinite knowledge. Then what will happen if we make this one adjustment in the whole Upanishad? Try to read the whole Upanishad, go through each verse and replace the meaning of Vidya with Atma Vidya, with the self knowledge. then the whole Upanishad will have no meaning. The consequent verses, they will have got no meaning. And therefore, Vidya means Upasana here and nothing else. Kramenaik ashraye syatam vidya vidye iti chet. Again a doubt. If we think in this way that Vidya and Avidya, that even though they are that the base of both, the base of karma, action, avidya, and the base, the support of upasana, that is vidya, is the same. करने वाला तो एक ही है ना. You understand what he is saying? That this, just like the support of all these pages is what? This book, isn't it? Support of all these pages is, what did we say? Book. But is there anything called book? Support of all actions is the mother or wife. But is there anyone called mother and wife? Think. So here he is saying that if we say, if we think in this manner, that Vidya and Avidya both are in sequence happening on the same substratum. Doubt. Karma, action and upasana both are happening in sequence. First comes karma, then comes upasana, but they are happening on the same substratum. They are having the same support. If we think like this is the question. The teacher says no. Again he says no. For everything he is saying no only. No. Vidya utpattau avidyayaha yatstatvat tada tad ashraye avidya vidyat upapattehe. No, because when knowledge raises its hood, be very attentive now. When Vidya starts expressing, when Upasana or your connection with the divine starts expressing, when will it start expressing? When will it start expressing? It will only start expressing when avidya is dead, when avidya has gone out of existence, meaning karma or attachment to karma or obsession to action has been overcome. And this seeker has come to realize that action is not being performed by him. Remember, second chapter was about karmanyavad, perform the action but don't expect a result. Third chapter was action is not good or bad, the attitude behind the action is good or bad. Fourth chapter was as a result of not performing action for results, he got a greater vision. And that vision was in the third chapter, that attitude is more important, intention is more important, action is not important. As a result of that, as he keeps refining his attitudes and intentions, he comes to realize that in the fourth chapter, that wherever there is an action taking place, there is inaction also there, and wherever there is inaction, there is action also. Karmani akarmani pashyet, fourth chapter. This is in sequence, we are going up. We are becoming refined, we are becoming pure, but the doership is still there. He still not started thinking about God. He has not started doing upasana yet. It's still about I am doing it. And then in the fifth chapter, what is the fifth chapter called? Karma Sannyasa Yoga. He gives up his obsession with karma. Having given up the obsession with karma, still Vidya has not, Vidya meaning Upasana has not started, has been introduced in him. Why? He is still using his doership. He is not addicted to karma, but now he is addicted to dhyana. Then the sixth chapter is Dhyana Yoga, yoga of meditation. Then in seventh chapter, the theme of Upasana is introduced to Arjuna, which eventually leads him to an expanded mind wherein he sees the Vishwarup Darshan, the cosmic form of the Lord. Now that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, these are where the Upasana is happening. But could he remain in the second chapter and perform the have the vision of the cosmic person? He will not understand only, because he is still at very gross level of existence because of lack of purity. So it is necessary for Upasana, when both are expressions of ignorance, if Upasana is showing its hood, it can only show its hood when karma has gone away. Husband can come up only when the father has gone away. The son can come up only when the husband has gone away, isn't it? You can't be two things at the same time. We are breaking down the whole thing. You feel you are the father also, son also, husband also. We are slowing it so much so that you are able to see that these things cannot happen all in one go. They can only happen one at a time. So same is the situation here also, that the teacher is saying that that once the Upasana has been introduced, or it gets invoked within the seeker, it can get invoked only after, and the moment it gets invoked, the avidya, which is karma, which is obsession with action, it dies its own death. And what does a upasak do? What does a person who is doing upasana do? His attention is not on action. His attention is on the divine, relative divine, gods. He is chanting the name of the Lord. He doesn't know where he is going. He doesn't know if he has washed the dishes. He doesn't know. Everything is happening, but his attention is on the Lord's name. See? And as long as that person is committed to the divine, he is performing the he is doing the upasana, he is remaining surrendered by thought to the divine entity. To that extent, the avidya will not show its head, because same person was the doer before when the karma was being done. The same person is now a upasak. He is remembering the Lord. And what is the disposition within his mind? Before it was, I am doing the action, I have to do the action, I have to purify, I have to do the yajna, dan, dharma, karma, etc. And now, what is his disposition in upasana? In upasana, his disposition is everything that is happening or not happening is by the will of the divine. His attention is on the divine. He is not worried about performing the action or not performing the action. He is not worried about the result or no result. His attention is on the divine. And therefore the teacher is saying that for a person to have come to upasana, upasana can begin, is invoked only with the death of karma, only with the death of avidya. Then one example is taken. न ह्यग्निरुष्णः प्रकाशश्चेति विज्ञान उत्पत्तौ यस्मिन् आश्रये तदुत्पन्नं तस्मिन्नेव आश्रये शीतोऽग्निरप्रकाशो वेति अविद्याया उत्पत्तिर्न अपि संशयो अज्ञानं वा. Fire is of the nature of heat and light, and with this knowledge, when this knowledge has risen in you that fire is of the nature of heat and light, and where is it appearing, this heat and light? What is the basis? Can heat and light appear without the fire independently? Can husband and son appear independently without the man? So what is the ashray here in this example? Ashray is the fire. Fire is hot, fire is light. Is heat light or is light heat? No, they are totally two different things. Do you need light to be hot? Do you see light wherever there is heat? No. No. Exactly same way. So what is the ashraya of karma and upasana? Ignorance. So just like there needs to be no light for heat to express, and there needs to be no heat for light to express. You can have cool light. Moonlight is cool light. It does not heat you up. Sunlight is hot light. See? Same way, karma and upasana are separate. They can never be one. So he says, this is we are deliberating too much into this thing. Don't get lost in all this. Remember, Ishavasya Medakam Sarvam. This is just for analysis for those who are intellectually oriented, and therefore he says that that one must not remain too confused with regards to avidya and karma. Just come to understand that they are not against each other, but at the same time the results are different, and therefore, and also that for one to express, the other cannot be there, and if the other is, when upasana is expressing, the lower one, which is karma, has to be dead and gone in order for uh, uh, the knowledge or the love. Upasana means you are obsessed with the divine Lord. You are in love with the divine Lord. You are surrendering to the divine Lord. You have developed a vision that before it was I am doing everything, now it is that everything is happening by the will of the divine. Therefore now divine becomes the main theme of you, of your mind. Even the thoughts that are coming, the thinking that is going on, the breath that is going on, there is no question of I anymore. If I is there, doer is there. If I is there, doer is there. And when we come to the upasana, so what did we say last in the previous few lectures? Karma must be performed so that we purify. And by purification, what does it mean? Body disidentification. Then upasana is done for what purpose? This is not given here, okay? I am adding extra. Upasana is done for what purpose? Upasana is not done for body disidentification. Upasana is done for dissolution of I. Dissolving the I. Dissolving the Jivatma, the Jiva Bhava. Karma is done to go beyond, to dissolve the body identification, and upasana is done to dissolve the I. But dissolving the I, is it liberation? Every summer, the ice cube, the ice in the Antarctic and Arctic, it melts. But come winter, it forms again. So it dissolved and it got formed again. So I got dissolved, the individual I got dissolved and merged into the total. But total also has is also it goes through the cycle of birth and rebirth. Totality we are talking about. Brahmaji, Hiranmayana Lokena. So what are we seeking? This topic is being told so that we are very clear where we stand. Karma is done by the individual, the ego, the doer. Upasana, the doer, is dissolved because in the recognition that everything is being done by the infinite, by the divine. So he surrenders. Till that idea of divine is there in his head, he will want to surrender. He will want to merge. Sarupya mukti, saloka mukti, sanidhya mukti, ananya bhakti. But all these types of liberations Sarupya liberation, moksha, Salokya moksha. All this eventually you will be born again at the totality level. And therefore, it was the words that were used were that, and maximum what is happening at this point is when you are doing karma, misery and delusion can affect you. When you are surrendered to the divine, misery and delusion, even if they are coming in your life, you are unaffected because you are focused on the divine. Tatra ko moha shokaha. So therefore here it says, Yasmin sarvani bhutani atma eva abhut vijanatah tatra ko moha ka shoka ekatvam anupashyatah. Ishavasya Upanishad, this was given in the 7th verse. Iti shoka mohadi asambhava shnute. For the knowledgeable one, for the jnani, the misery and delusion is impossible. Why? Because Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Bhut Vijanata. He has come to see what Yasmin Sarvani, the entire, what is Bhutani, the entire cosmos, the entire empirical world, the entire Jagat, Bhutani. He is seeing it from the self point of view, that self alone is expressing as space, air, fire, water, earth. The self is himself, itself, pervading the entire. Maya tetamidam sarvam. Remember those two verses, verse 4 and verse 5 of the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The whole world is in me, I am in the whole world. I am transcendent. Neither the world is in me nor I am in the whole world, yet I support the world and untouched by the world. Can you come to this realization right now? This is what this verse means. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atma eva abhut vijanatah. He does not see the whole world as separate from Atma. He does not see the entire experienced world as separate from Atma. Then if his vision has accepted everything as I, then how can he have Tatra ko moha ka shokaha? Then how can this person have any misery or delusion? Misery and delusion is possible only where there is sense of otherness, only where there is something else separate from you. But he is seeing the whole expanse as the expanse of the self. Is the ocean troubled by the expression of waves? Does he die with every wave? Does he get excited with the birth of every wave? No. Do you get excited if your child is born? Do you get excited if you made good business? Do you get excited if you made your dish came out proper? Do you get excited if your project is completed in time? And all the opposites also. Do you become miserable if things don't go your way? For such a person, Where is the question of shoka and moha? Ekatvam anupashyataha. He is seeing everything as one, and that one I am. There is no sense of otherness, there is no difference, and therefore no shoka and moha. How beautiful! अविद्या कहाँ असंभवात तद उपदानस्य कर्मणः अपि अनुपपत्तिम अवोचाम. Then in this manner avidya asambhavat. Avidya means karma. Karma means action. Asambhavat. It is impossible. When it is impossible that karma cannot express, avidya cannot express, and when it cannot express means it has been it has dissolved away, meaning the doership is dissolved away. And once the doership is dissolved away, then how from that substratum again action is possible? Not possible. Can you, once you have become a mother, can you become a what do you call, a virgin again? Not possible. Once you have become a youth, can you become a teenage again? Not possible. Think. Same way. Same way. Once the doership is dissolved, avidya is dissolved, karma is dissolved. Karma means there is a doer, there is an activity, and the doer is identified with the activity, therefore it is called karma. When this relationship is dissolved in the light of new knowledge that all activity is prompted by the divine, I have got no role in it. Don't we say that? न कर्मणा न प्रजया धनेन त्यागे नैके अमृतत्व मानसु. What is that prayer which we say after every puja? What is that? कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणाति समर्पयामि. Here still doership is there. But the one who is surrendered to the Lord, one who has that vision, he will not even make a prayer. If I made any mistakes, please, I offer those mistakes also at your feet. Still doership is there. That's why guilty feeling. And this point we have already told you before. Amrutam ashnuta iti upekshikam amrutam. Here what is being told that such a person attains to immortality. This immortality should be taken up as relative immortality and not absolute immortality. विद्या शब्देन परमात्म विद्या अग्रहणे हरण्मयेन इत्यादीनां द्वारमार्गादि याचनम् अनुपपन्नं स्यात्. If we take, again the same point is coming which I made before. If vidya, here says vidya shabdena paramatma vidya grahane. If vidya word is taken up to be as paramatma vidya, vidya means knowledge. dictionary meaning. But then you need a teacher to explain that is Vidya meaning Upasana, is Vidya meaning knowledge, is Vidya here the infinite knowledge? Which one? Which knowledge is it? Just as Purusha is a person, but which person? Prathama Purush, Madhyama Purush, Tritiya Purush, Uttama Purush? Which one? Purusha means person. Which person? Are we talking about the person who is performing action? Are we talking about the person who is surrendered to the divine? Are we talking about the person whose nature is divine, who is not other than the divine personality? Or are we talking about the person which is Atma? Or are we talking about the person whose essential nature is Brahman? Which person are we talking about? For this analysis, teachers are required. So here the teacher, this commentary is by Adi Shankaracharya ji, and he is saying that he attains immortality, and this immortality has to be taken as relative immortality. If we take the word Vidya to be Paramatma Vidya, then the verse meaning Hiranmayana Patrena will become null and void. What is the purpose of that verse then? If Vidya is taken as Paramatma Vidya, absolute knowledge, then what is the point of talking about Hiranmaya Lok? What is the point of talking about the effulgent existence, the Satya Lok, Brahmaji's Lok, the world of the Creator? Then that verse should not be included in this Upanishad. And when the path in the last 3, 4, 5 verses, when the path was given at the time of death, he is thinking, then he is invoking, he is praying to the fire and the air and the God. Then as his the last breath is coming, he is praying that may I remember everything, whatever I have studied. That please take me to the Hiranmaya Lok. Then these verses will have no meaning, and the context of these verses are because we took the word Vidya and Avidya to mean as Upasana and Karma, and then they fall into the picture, into the scheme of thought. तस्माद् उपासनया समुच्चयो न परमात्म विज्ञानेन इति यथास्माभिर्व्याख्यात एव मंत्राणाम अर्थ इति उपरम्यते. And therefore he says that and taking the goal to be Hiranmayana Lokena, therefore it was told that karma and upasana must be practiced, even though they are opposing, even though not opposing, but the results are different. Therefore they must be practiced together so that one can come to the Hiranmaya Lok. And talking of Hiranmaya Lok, we are not talking about Paramatma Gyan, we are not talking about absolute knowledge We are not talking about absolute reality. In this manner, uh, uh, the, the, the verses that were talked about avidya and karma, where are they? Verse 11, 12, 13 and onwards, all these, they have to be understood in this light. Otherwise, we can, our thinking will go haywire, and with this analysis we take a full stop in our analysis, and stop hereafter. इति श्रीमत् परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्यस्य श्रीशंकर भगवतः कृतौ वाजसनेय संहित उपनिषद भाष्यम संपूर्णम. हरि ओम तत्सत्. So with this Upanishad, which is the creation with the commentary of Bhagwan Sri Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, who is a Parivrajak who does not stay in one place, keeps moving around one place to the other. Srimad Paramahamsa, he is a Paramahans. He is got a great who are Paramahans, who are able to discriminate between the truth and the untruth. Hamsa means swan. Swan is able to discriminate between water and milk. If given mixed together, it will drink only the milk. So Adi Shankaracharya is able to discriminate between the truth and the untruth. And he doesn't stop anywhere, he keeps moving. And he is an Acharyasya. And he is an Acharya. Who is an Acharya? Whatever he has discriminated upon the truth and the untruth, he is able to put logic, meaning, give commentary on it. He is able to communicate it to other people. You take many people, many Mahatmas, they want to sit in meditation, they will give you a mantra and you can go on doing the mantra. But with this commentary, look at how exhaustive the commentary on Ishavasya Upanishad is. Each word has been deliberated upon. And even after concluding the Upanishad, because there might be a doubt in the mind of the seeker, student, even that has been addressed. This only a Acharya can do. Pandit can also do. But Pandit is more like a philosopher, doctor of philosophy. Knows everything, practices nothing. Acharya is he who is knowing, who is discriminating. He is put it in the practice in his life, and at the same time he is an example to other students because he is practicing it in his life and is able to communicate what he has learnt as he has gone along that journey. See, when we see in the life of Adi Shankaracharya that Chandal comes, one uncouth person, dirty, unshaven, unbathed, with meat hanging around his body and 4 dogs, he is walking in those narrow streets of Varanasi. Adi Shankaracharya having taken the bath in the Gangaji, he is coming, and even immediately out of habit, because he is a Brahmin, he is a clean, he follows hygiene. He says, Munch, get away, get aside. And when that uncouth person reminds him that whom are you saying get away, get away? If you are telling my body to get away, my body is made up of the same dirty things that your body is made up of. And if you are telling the Atma to get away, the self to get away, you know very well that Atma is all pervasive, it cannot go anywhere. So, my question is, whom are you telling to get away? That great Shankaracharya. No, don't you know who you are talking to? I am Shankaracharya. I have written commentary on Upanishads. I have written this. I have debated. I have won so many debates. I have defeated Mandan Mishra. I have got so many disciples. And you are telling me this? No. Acharya is he who is practicing what he is teaching. The integrity is there. What he thinks is what he talks, what he acts in life. Our thing is, in the lecture we are fantastic. Afterwards, puss, we are not following anything. That is not Acharya. But Adi Shankaracharya, even after this experience, immediately, whatever the great esteem and respect he had, immediately he fell at his feet and he said, please tell me who you are. You cannot be an ordinary person. And then he straight away he composed Manisha Panchakam. See? Now if Shankaracharya can learn even after all that knowledge, is there a possibility that we can learn from every experience of our life? Or have we become know all? Have we become a full cup, full pot? Can't pour anything else inside. Why? I know everything, don't teach me. Our disposition should always be empty. Be empty all the time. Then knowledge can come in. But if already default settings are there, arrogance of knowledge is there, then even if learning is possible, it will not be possible because you are not available. You become available only when you are empty. When you become a nobody, then knowledge is possible. So with this we conclude Hari Om Tat Sat. With this we conclude our Ishavasya Upanishad, and next week we'll start Keno Upanishad. I'll send you the link and you can take it from there. We already chanted the Upanishad, isn't it, last week? Yes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.